Hey there, www.andrewmarkmusic, late night in the van again. I was thinking about a video that a teacher named John on YouTube, who's in Africa, and seems like a really cool guy and doing good work. So anything I say here is not personal. I'm talking about, in this video, concepts, ideas, what people are saying about ideas and concepts within the context of Gnosticism and spirituality, questioning whether they're right, is it accurate what they're saying? Does it make sense? Is it coherent? Is there sufficient reason? I like goalposts, reason and logic. No, they don't get us to the thing in itself, but they're useful tools as far as they go. So the video I'm commenting on is the one he did on Freemasonry. And in short, what he's saying is that Freemasonry is now run by Sith Lords. So, he's borrowing from Star Wars as an analogy. And he's not wrong. It's not that what he's saying, he's wrong on that. And I'll sort of unpack here some of the problems that I see with it. There's a basic assumption that modernity is progress. This linear view, evolutionary linear view of time, that everything is just constantly progressing. We were bombarded with this at the movie theater, with the plane turning into like a Star Trek, the first plane turning into a Star Trek machine, right? So it's inculcated into our mente, into our mind, So that to me isn't a given. Like, I get it. It seems like progress, but there's a whole bunch of presuppositions that you have to buy into to get there. That may not be true. If there was an advanced civilization prior to 7,000 years ago, then the myth of progress might not be true. That this could all be a dumbed down version of reality. Certainly it looks like if we were bioengineered, it looks like our brains were bioengineered to make us spiritually retarded. So that would be the first thing I would say. And the second thing I would say, he thinks it's a given that there were white, authentic white hats right from the beginning of Freemasonry. And it's just morphed into black hat Sith Lords. Well, there's problems with that. I'm not going to go right back to what I think and have researched to what the history of Freemasonry is at its roots. Like, I believe that it came out of the Egyptian mystery schools. I'm not going to get into that here. But certainly by the time of the 1st century after Christ, there's writings that say that it was put in place as a form of manipulation, societal manipulation within the 1st century AD. So it may not have been, white hat goodness right from the very get-go. I mean, there's also the issue of whether the means, whether the ends justify the means, and like, if you look at the history, like, I understand that what I'm going to say predates the actual foundation of Freemasonry, whenever that happened in the last 300, 400, 500 years. But I'll take it back to the Knights Templar, right? And you can link, you can connect the dots from that back to the supposed bloodlines of Mary Magdalene. So if you follow the dots there, you see their heavy involvement in big finance, and they were the primary promoters of modern, the modern banking system, usury. So again, it's just not a given that they acted on white hats, and I mean on white hat principles. A part of this is, I view things more from a Kantian lens of ethics, and the golden rule, and every action that you take would hopefully, as an ideal, could become a universal law. Whereas if you go by what these people have actually implemented, they've implemented a consequential ethical worldview where they can commit genocide as long as at the end of the genocide there's enough payoff that okay, well, it was sort of it was ugly that we had to do that. It was ugly that we had to commit mass genocide against the Americas, but look what we got: ice cream, and look at our banking establishment now. So it's from that ethical point of view, especially from an ideal spiritual categorical imperative point of view, I don't think it passes a sufficient reason test to grant any white-hattedness here. It all looks like shenanigans to me. Now, he's also very fond of saying the word Yeshua, right? Like this, and he says this within this quasi-Gnostic, kundalini, Vedic orb of sort of a syncretism, right? And anybody that knows me knows I'm not a huge fan of syncretism. Like, I get it, but I'm just not. I use it myself, very minimally, because I'm very fond of Samkhya, and I think there's lots of correlations between Samkhya and Sethian Christian Gnosis. But I try to be aware of, where I'm just like pouring everything in and mixing it all. Yeah, it's all good. No, it's Yeshua means Yahweh saves. Or basically, everything's going to be disputed on. It just comes with the JQ. Everything gets disputed. If you breathe, it's disputed. It just comes with the territory of the JQ. But generally, Yahweh saves, and that's anti-gnosis. The best that you could say on that point is, I subscribe to the Valentinian school. But then see my latest video, the one I did before this, where I sort of do a deconstruction of why the Valentinian school doesn't make a lot of sense. And as far as some of the roots of Christian Gnosis, the Sethian school makes far more sense, where 2 + 2 = 4, whereas the Valentinians 2 + 2 = 3. So, yeah, I mean, what is he saying here? Is he saying Yeshua was an Essene, and the Essenes were the lineages that came out of the Egyptian mystery schools, and that some of the primary lines of this esoteric occult lineage that came through the ages out of Egypt were Hebrew, right? This seems to be what he's saying. But again, the closest you're going to get there is a Valentinian type of syncretism where the Torah and Jesus get fused together. It doesn't really work. But that's kind of where he's at. Now, there's other people who I think have more of a better argument as soon as they say, oh, okay, so it came from the Egyptian. Oh, that's Thoth. Oh, okay, yes. So you have Thoth as the architect of the Egyptian mystery schools, and he became Tutmosis III, which is King David, because that's what Tutmosis means. It means Davud, David in English, right? And so the lineage of King David, Tutmosis, would be Thoth, right? And that these were the people that came through the mystery schools, and ended up being the Essenes, right? And they came out of the Hyksos lines, right? All secretive, all occultish, all hidden, always wanting to stay under the radar and not be noticed until 2001. We don't need to go there. So is that what he's saying? And if that's what he's saying, then maybe he should have a chat with Dan Winter, But then you get into just a whole other area of ufology and those damn pesky aliens, and that's fine. I don't dismiss it totally outright. It's just, as a Sethian Gnostic, it ain't my bag. It's not my gig, right? So, but I at least appreciate there that the dots sort of connect, right? So this would make this Yeshua character, it would make him Hebrew, but it would not reconcile with the Torah, because the Torah is misrepresenting the actual history that they are proposing, like that the real history of the line of David is actually Egyptian occultism, right? So it doesn't fit, right? It's one or the other, and where I've come to sit on that point is I don't know. When I look at the history of Egypt over 4,000 years, hard to say. I mean, something very strange happened in the 18th dynasty, and I would say anything past that was corrupted by whatever happened here with the Hyksos. And then this Jesus is a Hyksos descendant, right? And this gets into this Yeshua goes, I am the bright and morning star, right? Like, the bright and morning star is an archon, because that's in Sethian Gnosticism, the planets are the archon. So he's admitting that he's an archon. He's the archon of Venus, right? The bright morning star. He's telling you that he's Lucifer, right? That's what Jesus is saying. He's saying that I am the bright morning star. He's telling you he's an archon, right? You're getting it straight from his own mouth. He's not denying it, right? So basically he's saying that he's Yaldabaoth. He's Yaldabaoth. That's what he's saying. Now, people like Decode Your Reality will be the first to agree with me here. You know, I'm not going to get into simulation. It's just like, okay, maybe, but we don't need to go there. So what I've said on this is that this Jewish Jesus dude is an archon. He's not being like, people are not understanding who he is and what he said. I mean, does it dawn on you that he's going to punish most people forever for thought crime? He couldn't even put in the New Testament that the earth was a spinning ball and end the debate, right, on that, which is still ongoing. He couldn't even put in the New Testament which actual Pharaoh was at the Exodus, right? And then he's going to punish people forever, and I have to suffer forever because of thought crime from a book that doesn't give any answers? Yeah, I don't think so. This is archontic. Now, what I'm saying is that there is an Aeon Christ, right? And the Aeon Christ precedes this replicant Yaldabaoth Jesus, right? In cosmological time, the Aeon Christ is the son of Barbello, came way before. It's a timeless being. But the point is, this Yaldabaoth as Jesus, the replicant, what normal Christianity calls the Antichrist, is a false archontic entity. And I think that explains much more about the Freemasons than anything, So, I mean, there's a principle called Occam's razor. It's just like, the simplest answer can quite usually be the correct answer. And to me, the fog just clears here. It's just like, okay, when I understand that, all the shenanigans surrounding Freemasonry, and I'm not zoning in on any one person here, okay? And there's good and bad everywhere. But when you look at the trajectory of this, if we just take a starting point of the Knights Templar up through, the creation of the Medicis and the all influenced by this occultism, and the beginning of the central banking system. And I pointed out that the gun weaponry, just coincidentally came into existence with the central banking. And now we have the military-industrial complex, which is the enforcement arm of this global usury system, as is now the bread and circus, the entertainment industry is there to divide and conquer. There's just as an example recently, there's no reason Roger Waters had to criticize Ozzy Osbourne, but this is their job now, right? This is their job, just to cause controversy and strife. So that's what it is. I don't. I'm not a big fan of Freemasonry. It's just like never really done it for me. If it's helped somebody, fine. I got no problem with that. But again, I'm talking big picture here, and as decent as a guy, as decent as a human being that guy comes across, if it's authentic and real, what he's saying, like, it doesn't really add up, And then you get, I'll finish up here with the old entwined serpents here, and the kundalini that he espouses. But again, you just have to. He's just presupposing that the kundalini and the serpent is a good thing, and that it's authentically of the pleroma, and I can't grant that. It looks like more Yaldabaoth, who created humans, who knows everything about the human anatomy, and how to manipulate it. It looks more Yaldabaoth to me. So, yeah, not buying necessarily that the serpent kundalini is true, authentic, pleromic spirituality. It looks like more manipulation to me, and look, I've said this in other blogs, the series V, we all know the Lizard series V if we're into this type of thing, and the season where the wicked reptilian queen is able to impart bliss, Satchitananda, into her slaves, right? Like, this doesn't, the assertion about kundalini and that it's enlightenment is a claim that I don't think holds up under scrutiny, right? One of the aspects of it is, right, you have endless writings about supernaturalism that comes along with this experience. But if you ask for any demonstration of it in our modern world, you just get a blank. Oh, well, they're not allowed to do it. I mean, he could move that mountain, literally move that mountain. That would be supernatural, but he's not allowed to. So you just have to take it on faith that he's okay. So why write all these stories then, if they're not allowed to? Like, why go on endlessly for thousands of years about supernatural abilities brought about by kundalini, right? So yeah, it's I like to do, but I just, when it comes down to grand narratives of spiritual assertion, I think there's only one correct route, and that's to just rip it all apart and be critical and go, okay, is this making sense? Does this add up? Do the dots connect? Is it 2 + 2 = 4, 2 + 2 = 3 here, or 5? And yeah. So anyway, I would say there is a real what I call the aeon of truth and wisdom of the pleroma. I would say that does exist, but I also say that there's a replicant copy of that entity, that beingness. So the replicant is always going to be foolishness and lies. And the shenanigans that come along with, Freemasonry and the elites that run it all now, yeah, they are Sith Lords. He's got that much right. You do realize these people are the ones who set up the situation for genocide, ongoing today in the Middle East. That's a direct result of Freemasonry, And how can you not know that every single government in the world hasn't been able to do one thing to really stop this? That's because they're all controlled by the Freemasonry and, their associates from the Middle East. They call all the shots, just like there was not one academy that in the world that questioned 9/11 until Alaska in 2019, and then a couple months later, after that report came out, they shut it all down. Oh, you can't make this stuff up. Okay, so this is andrewmarkmusic.com on ye old kundalini. I'm not saying he's wrong. He could be right. I'm just questioning it and go, okay. To me, I think the Sethian view offers a clearer picture and better answers. Ciao.